It's time, Cougar Nation. Cougar Tracks. The best season analysis with BYU insider Mitch Harper on KSL News Radio and on video every day on the YouTube page for KSL Sports.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL News Radio. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. We're 3 days away until BYU football takes on the Colorado Buffaloes on this Wednesday edition of Cougar Tracks. But we got to start off the show with some BYU basketball news as the Cougs finally have their finalized schedule.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
The most anticipated season in BYU basketball history is just around the corner, and we finally have a schedule. The 2025-2026 schedule is finally completed. The Big 12 announced its schedule for the upcoming season, and man, cannot wait. It's going to be a loaded slate. Back to an 18-game schedule for the Big 12, and I think part of that is due to, well, taking a back seat to the SEC last year for a league like the Big 12 that prides itself on being the toughest basketball conference in America for the last decade and change. That didn't sit well last year, taking a back seat to the SEC. Still 7 teams in the NCAA tournament last year, but moving back to an 18-game conference schedule allows for more opportunities in the non-conference to build up that resume. Don't beat each other up as much as they did last season, and I think it could work out quite well for the Big 12. And BYU looks to be in the mix for that title race in the Big 12 Conference, and it all starts off for the Cougars on Saturday, January 3rd in Manhattan, Kansas. The Cougs go to Kansas State to open up Big 12 play. Bramlage Coliseum, haven't been there since 2024. They lost that game in Manhattan a couple years ago. But one thing that stands out when I look at this January portion of the Big 12 schedule for BYU this upcoming season, notice a lot of Wednesday, Saturday cadence on the schedule. I love that. The first 2 years for BYU in the Big 12 was primarily Tuesdays and Saturdays. Saturday, Tuesday, however you want to slice that up. There were some Wednesday games on the road, typically late in the season the past 2 years. But the Wednesday-Saturday structure, I think, is the perfect scheduling cadence for BYU basketball because being a program that doesn't operate on a Sunday, it gives BYU a little bit more breathing room to, one, rest and just get their game plans, practices dialed in for these games. Now, I know Kevin Young probably doesn't need any more practices. He probably gets tired of all the practices in this sport, but I think a Saturday, Wednesday cadence is fantastic. BYU's Big 12 home opener is Wednesday, January 7th against Arizona State. The Cougs will welcome Marcus Adams, former Coug, back to the Marriott Center in that game. Then here's what's interesting in January. Utah appears on the schedule twice in a 2-week stretch. BYU goes to the Huntsman Center, which, again, why is Utah getting the first home game every single year? It's kind of weird to me. It's the third consecutive year BYU goes to the Huntsman Center first. Last year, first is Big 12 foes, but kind of an interesting scheduling tidbit there. Saturday, January 10th at the Huntsman Center. BYU hasn't won there since 2021. You got to go take care of business in the Huntsman Center. And then 2 weeks later, Saturday, January 24th, Utah goes to the Marriott Center. I'm okay with BYU and Utah basketball not being the regular season finale. That was not always the case in the Mountain West and the WAC. Last year it happened, and it was kind of anticlimactic. We'll get to the senior day portion of the schedule coming up a little bit later. But 2 rivalry games in a 2-week stretch, kind of crazy. And I think what's also noteworthy, the Saturday, January 24th Utah game, 2 days later, and we talked about this extensively a couple weeks back, BYU plays a Monday game against Arizona. So there is no day to practice in between. And maybe Kevin Young likes that. I don't know. Maybe he'll say, please give me that. I like that better. But I think that's kind of noteworthy where I'll be curious to see what the tip time is for that BYU-Utah game. Ideally, that's an afternoon game. They have all of Saturday night to relax, rest, get ready for the Arizona Wildcats because Sunday is a non-starter for the Cougars, and then they got to get ready for a big Monday clash against an Arizona team that's going to be really good. You hope that doesn't end up being almost like a scheduled loss, potentially. Arizona won in the Marriott Center last year, so challenging schedule. And oh, by the way, in between all of that, there's a road trip to the USA, United Supermarkets Arena, Lubbock, Texas, as BYU takes on Texas Tech on January 17th. The February schedule, the highlights here, Saturday, February 7th, BYU hosts Houston. Man, that is going to be electric. 2 years ago, BYU hosted Houston and barely lost. They had that tough, heartbreaking defeat to the Cougs. And then, so they're looking for that first victory over Houston since joining the Big 12. Last year, they were winless. They lost at Houston, and then in the Big 12 Conference Tournament. Houston's a little bit younger this year. They're not as veteran, but they still got Milo Suzan, Emmanuel Sharp. They still got that veteran leadership, but they've also got some heralded five-star talent rolling in as well. 3 days later, just the Big 12, man, the gauntlet, the buzzsaw. February 10th, Rob Wright and BYU traveled to Waco to go to Baylor. Foster Pavilion, that is going to be a scene. I'm sure Baylor fans are just counting down the days until that one. And then BYU hosts Iowa State February 21st. And then they close out February with a trip to West Virginia. Third consecutive year, BYU is going to Morgantown. The Big 12 just loves sending BYU out to Morgantown to those country roads. And then the Big 12 regular season schedule closes out for BYU in epic fashion. They go on the road at Cincinnati March 3rd. It's going to be a good game. Curious to see what Wes Miller does this year. They lost Jizzle James, so this is a make or break year for Wes Miller. But then the regular season finale, Saturday, March 7th, BYU versus Texas Tech. My goodness, that is going to be an absolute amazing game. That's senior day. BYU fans have experienced some great senior days. Think back to 2020 against Gonzaga. That was awesome. If these two teams live up to the hype that many are bestowing upon them, oh man, this could be an all-timer to close out the regular season. You could be talking about a game where both of those teams are looking to solidify their resumes as a number one seed in March. That's what we're talking about on senior day, and that's in the Marriott Center. Goodness gracious, sign me up. I cannot wait for that game. And think about this too, looking at the entire BYU basketball schedule, which gets going October 18th, exhibition game against Nebraska in Lincoln. Regular season tips off November 3rd against Villanova in Las Vegas. Only 7 games against non-power teams. 7. Think about 3 years ago, BYU only played 4 power conference teams. You've had a glamorous rise, BYU fans. Oh my goodness. From the WCC to the buzzsaw of the Big 12, and you're in the thick of the title race. 3 years ago when BYU joined this league, I think Cougar fans were thinking, can they win a game? Obviously they did. And they've won a lot of games, and they've been in the NCAA tournament the last 2 years, and last season they were in the Sweet 16, and they're looking for more this year. Loaded BYU basketball schedule, and you can listen to all of the games on KSL News Radio, and we'll have full coverage on KSLSports.com. We're taking a break. More Cougar Tracks coming up here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube. Mitch Harper with you. Some recruiting news, some big recruiting news. BYU football picked up a commitment, from Lehi running back Devaughn Eka. Eka is a speedster running back from Lehi High School. I saw Eka at the Under Armour Next Camp in May at West High School. He is a speedster. I can't remember exactly his official 40 time. I was looking at my notes trying to find that. It's been reported out there back in the winter that he's about a 4.5 40, and I think that's fair for a high school athlete. But Eka plays fast with the pads on too, and I think that's what's noteworthy about him. He's got the speed and the 40 time, but it also carries with the pads. And he is a shifty running back. He's really an all-purpose back. He can be a 3-down running back if need be. And when you think about BYU's running back position long-term, you got to start building that up. You've got to start, thinking that day after LJ Martin could be sooner rather than later. With the way that LJ Martin is playing, leading the Big 12 in yards per game, rushing so far through 3 games, we could be talking about an NFL running back after this year in LJ Martin. So the Cougs got to, build up that cupboard at running back after LJ. And I don't say Eka's going to step in and be the dude in 2026 if that was the case, but you got to be thinking about that at all times. I know everyone's enjoying this 3-0 start and now the start of Big 12 play, but there's always an eye on the future. It never stops. The recruiting never sleeps. BYU, their football class for 2026 remains in the top 25, number 23 by the 24/7 Sports team recruiting class rankings for the class of 2026. Far and away, the best recruiting class of the Kalani Sitake era. But Eka's commitment was not the only commitment on the recruiting trail for BYU sports. BYU basketball also got a commitment from Will Openshaw, Timpview forward, who committed to the Cougs. And I had the chance to catch up with Openshaw to discuss his commitment, why he picked BYU, who were some of the other programs that recruited him, and how this all came to be. This is my conversation with Will Openshaw, newest BYU basketball commit. It's exciting times for BYU basketball, and it's always exciting in the KY era, especially on the recruiting trail. And the Cougars just picked up a big commitment in the class of 2026 from Timpview High School. Will Openshaw, and he joins me now to discuss his commitment to the Cougars. Will, first off, congrats on the commitment to BYU. Just, maybe take us through what led to this moment of deciding to pick the Cougars.
Thank you. I appreciate it. BYU, like, the thing that made them kind of stand out among the rest of the other schools that I've been getting recruited by is me and my family and some of the coaches that have been helping me with this decision. Felt like it was the best opportunity and best place to further develop my game and just kind of better my future for when it comes to my basketball career.
BYU jumped into the mix with a formal offer recently. What was, going through your mind when BYU gave that offer to you and that opportunity being a hometown guy?
It was super humbling, just grateful for it all. I look back on some of the things that I did to get to the spot, and, I'm just grateful for everybody. And I kind of thought about all those who helped me get there. And, I was just super appreciative of the opportunity and stuff.
That's really awesome. Congrats on this commitment. And just to kind of go over some of your height so we're all on the same page. I see listings at 6'10". Is that still correct, or you're still growing? Where are you standing at these days in your height?
Yeah. So the last time I checked, I'm 6'10". I think I might still be growing a little bit. Not exactly. I think so. So maybe we'll get another inch, but 6'10" is the official listing right now.
So what did Kevin Young and this coaching staff tell you that they envision you becoming in this BYU basketball program?
The thing that was really intriguing was that I felt like their system and where they wanted to get me was specifically tailored like for me, and it was a system that I would fit in. They envisioned me obviously having a role on their team, and just running the pick and pop, pick and roll, being able to stretch the floor a little bit more, find guys, and kind of just help expand and stretch the floor a little bit more.
You had offers along with BYU, reported offers from Stanford, Nevada, UVU, some of the local schools. Who were some of those, top contenders that, along with BYU in your recruitment, that you were kind of mulling over in this decision?
Yeah, there's lots of great schools, and shout out to them obviously again. I'm super grateful for the opportunities they gave me too. Definitely didn't take that for granted at all. UVU was a big contender. They really wanted me, and I really felt like if I would have went there, it would have been still a great move and spot for me. And so grateful for them. They were probably the biggest contender, or the close second.
What do you feel like your strengths are as a player?
Um, for me specifically, I think I've gotten um, I've gotten a lot more aggressive and like competitive when it comes to like the mental side of it. Like before, if I would lose a game or something, it was like whatever. But now I kind of just hate losing, and I think that kind of drives me to want to be better. I think on the floor, my ability to that I've been working on, especially, and I think I still can improve it a lot. But the ability to get to the basket from the perimeter, I think I've been improving on that a lot. Kind of just being able to stretch the floor, obviously inside, in high school especially because there's not a ton of people my size. I think I'm really able to dominate the post if I play it right. But I mean, defense, that's kind of the thing I've been looked at for like the most past couple of years, and something I pride myself on. So those are probably my biggest ones.
I'm curious when you bring up defense, what's your wingspan? I know kind of getting deep in the weeds with like the measurables again, but like what is your wingspan? You look like a pretty long athlete.
Yeah. I haven't measured in a little bit, but I think it's somewhere around 7 feet.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, when you bring up kind of just that competitiveness, you've been in some big stages with Utah prospects, your teammate, Dean Rickert. How excited are you to continue at BYU with your high school teammate and Dean?
It's super, super exciting. Obviously, I've known him for a really long time. Work out all the time together, and obviously we play at Timpview together. Super great guy, great basketball player, even better person. And it's super exciting. We talked about it a little bit, and we're both excited. So it would definitely be fun.
Being a hometown guy, did you grow up a BYU fan, have connections to BYU, or were you just kind of more just a basketball observer? Have you always been a fan of the Cougars?
Um, for the most part, yeah. BYU. I mean, I grew up going to a lot of the basketball games with my dad and stuff. They've always been around. I got helmets, and I went to some of their basketball camps when I was younger, a little kid. So I mean, I always thought it would be cool to go play there, but to actually make it happen was super cool.
When was the moment in your basketball journey that you felt like, yeah, college basketball could be an opportunity for me?
Probably not till like more recently than most people, I would say. Um, I probably knew it was a possibility around freshman, sophomore year, or maybe sophomore year of high school. I knew I still had a long way to go, but that I definitely had the tools and the abilities. I mean, my body, I've been blessed with an amazing body for it. So I think that it really hit me that if I just put in some hard work around beginning of my high school time, that I could really do it if I put my mind to it.
Talking with BYU basketball commit Will Openshaw here on KSL Sports. And I've seen some social media posts from Kyle Collinsworth, a BYU basketball legend. See that you've been training with KC along with Dean. What's some pointers that Kyle Collinsworth has given you and areas of focus in training with him?
Kyle's great. Yeah. I think his work is awesome. One thing that he kind of emphasizes, I don't know if you've seen, maybe he's worn some of the shirts in the videos, but he's got a little defensive love shirt.
Mm-hmm.
He's big. He's a big defense guy. Just like the fundamentals of it and being in defensive shape. He says it being being in shape is a skill, and I totally agree with that. So, just working on that is something he's been able to help me work on that.
So your high school teammate and future BYU teammate Dean Rickert's going to join the program in April. What's kind of the timeline for you as far as when you plan to, get enrolled and matriculate into BYU and be part of this basketball program?
Yeah, for sure. After high school, I plan on serving a LDS mission for the church. And then after that, I'll go play, or I plan to go play, obviously.
That's
So
exciting.
around 28.
That's exciting. And was that, I'm curious too, and I bring this up because in recruiting, following it over the years, sometimes schools will say, can you come in immediately after high school? And if you're got plans to serve a mission, maybe that pauses, the offers potentially. Was that an impact at all in your recruitment with schools that sent you out interest?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. So, the mission thing, there's lots of different mixed opinions about it. I had some schools tell me they weren't a big fan of it. There were some that, heavily encouraged it, and then there were some that were pretty neutral. BYU was one that kind of encouraged it, because from a basketball perspective, it gives you time, it gives your body time to develop and grow a little bit more, which is something they thought I would need. So, they've been super supportive, and I'm grateful for that. And from a basketball perspective, they think that it actually there are a couple benefits from doing it. So.
A few more moments here with Will Openshaw, and I'm just curious, Will, what are your impressions of Coach Kevin Young? I think fans on the outside, they see him and they've just been, thoroughly impressed, obviously, with the results that he's been having with the BYU program. But as someone who's right there, being part of this and getting an opportunity to be part of his program, what is Coach Young like in these recruiting conversations and talking with you? What's been your impressions of KY?
Yeah, from a more like outside perspective, people they think he's like a great guy, and he is. Like, the few times I've gone and talked to him, he's been super impressive and super understanding, and I think he's really he really knows what he's doing for sure. Super, like, he's just not just another dude, but like he's a normal guy. Like like he's nice and super. I was really impressed with him.
Yeah, he's got a down to earth, just kind of normal guy approach, but he's definitely got an amazing ability to coach the game of basketball. And so, what's next, Will? Between now and the mission, what's kind of on the docket for you and the next steps for you? Are you getting ready for your upcoming season with Timpview? Just maybe lay out what's next for you and your basketball journey before you go out and serve your mission.
Yes, sir. A big focus our team has this year, going into this year, is winning a state championship. It's something we've been trying to do for the past couple of years. We definitely know we have the team to do it. We just got a new coaching staff, or a new coach, head coach, and he's been great so far. And I know he wants to win, and that's my biggest priority right now is getting my guys in that state championship game and winning it. And obviously, the BYU stuff, it's cool, but I haven't done anything yet, right? So just working on my game, so that when I do go, I'll be able to do something, like, it's cool when I committed there and stuff, but now I just gotta work to actually play and show that skill set.
He's Will Openshaw, newest BYU basketball commit. Congrats to you, Will. Congrats to your family as well, because these sort of things don't happen without a supportive family and all the time and effort. So congrats again to you, and looking forward to covering your time at BYU and this season at Timpview. Should be a lot of fun.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's Will Openshaw here on KSL Sports. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio and KSL Sports YouTube page. I'm your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. It's BYU versus Colorado week. The Cougs take on the Buffs Saturday night, 8:15 p.m. on ESPN and right here on KSL News Radio. And to get an insider look at the Buffs, I was joined by Trent Finnegan of DenverSports.com and 104.3 The Fan, a sibling station at Bonneville in Denver. And I caught up with Trent to get to know these Colorado Buffaloes and what they're all about in 2025. Here's my conversation with Trent. BYU versus Colorado. First trip to Boulder for BYU since 1981. And to get an insider look at the Buffs and Coach Prime, joined now by Denver sports writer, covers Colorado, and Coach Prime for Denver Sports, Trent Finnegan. And Trent, appreciate you hopping on board here and talking some CU football. This should be a really exciting matchup between these two Big 12 programs.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. CU's obviously going to be looking for some revenge from that 36-14 trouncing and Alamo Bowl last year. But this is a very different CU team, and I think you could argue it's a bit different of a BYU team as well. Obviously, the quarterback's a little different there. So playing at Folsom Field is going to play into CU's advantage as well. So they haven't had a big test like this. I know Georgia Tech was good early. CU hadn't really had stuff figured out yet. So now it seems like they finally have stuff figured out and they get a big ranked team coming into town. This is going to tell us a lot about the Buffs. And I think it's going to tell us a lot about BYU as well. I mean, they look good to start the season, but they haven't played a very difficult opponent as well, I would argue. So big test for both teams early on.
Last year, that Alamo Bowl, BYU handled Colorado. So do you think that's going to play as a huge motivation here for the guys that experienced that on Colorado's roster last year and are back for this one?
Oh, 100%. And I rewatched that game the other day, and you just see some of the tactics that Kalani Sitake used, like that onside kick early on in the first half to steal another possession. Parker Kingston, who's back this year for BYU, he was running all over Colorado on those punt returns. They got humiliated. Colorado got humiliated on national TV. There's no way around it. And there's a decent amount of guys still back from that team last year. I know, obviously, Shador, Travis, Shiloh, Cam Silman, Craig, Jimmy Horn. Those guys aren't there. But there are some guys, especially on the lines, who were there. They witnessed that embarrassment firsthand, and they're going to be looking to get some revenge for sure.
Talking with Trent Finnegan, sports writer for DenverSports.com. You can check out his bylines on DenverSports.com. I got to say, Trent, it was pretty cool to see. This is kind of a fun topic. Ralphie 7, she looked legit, because I bring this up because when we talk about the Alamo Bowl, Ralphie 6 was, I'm not going to lie, that was my first experience seeing Ralphie. That was a bit disappointing in San Antonio.
It was terrible. I mean, she made it to the 20, I think, and she was just walking. And it was good. It was, a lot of people weren't happy that CU didn't have the live mascot ready to roll for the first two home games of the season. But at the same time, I understand it. Like, if a 700-pound bison isn't ready to go and she's let out in a stadium of 53,000 people, I don't think that would go over well. So that was a really cool experience on Saturday. I have been in that stadium for a lot of games, and I've never heard that stadium that loud in my life. Wow. And the football hadn't even started yet. It was just, she bolted out that gate, and I swear to you, it injected some kind of life into that stadium, that football team. And I think that she's going to be one of the best Ralphies. I mean, we only have 6 others to choose from, but Ralphie 5 was phenomenal during her tenure back in the 2010s. But I think that first run showed that Ralphie 7 might be the best of the bunch.
I'm excited. I cannot wait to see that this Saturday, Ralphie 7. And I'm curious, going back to the field, did quarterback Caden Salter inject life and belief that he is the QB going forward for the Buffs as QB1?
I definitely think that he put that debate to bed. Like 2 weeks ago, Deion said that he didn't know what a solidified quarterback was. And I think that the Buffs finally have a solidified quarterback in Salter. I think something else that helped them was Pat Shurmur called a much better game. He started attacking downfield more. He used Salter's legs more on design runs. But Salter showed his poise when he wasn't blitzed, and there was no receivers open. He found running lanes to stretch the defense. And then when Wyoming did blitz, Salter was able to dice them up deep in the secondary. So he really showed that dual threat ability. Now, that's the Wyoming Cowboys. That's not the BYU Cougars. The BYU Cougars are a much better team, a much better defense, and have a much better coach in Sitake. So I do think that Salter kind of injected some much needed life into this offense, and he showed that he's QB1. But the real test is this week against BYU to see if last week's performance was who he actually is, or if last week's performance was just, oh, we're playing an inferior opponent and we have more talent. Let's throw the ball all over the field.
How have they been handling Juju Lewis, the heralded quarterback for the Buffs, the true freshman? I bring him up because he was there was so much talk about him in that Alamo Bowl week. Why didn't he emerge? Has it just been a steep learning curve? Because I'll admit, I kind of thought from afar, oh, he's going to probably eventually win this thing.
Yeah, it seems that they have more of a long-term plan for him, which is risky, I would say, to see in this era of college football, where you see a lot of people, a lot of quarterbacks, if they're not starting their freshman year, they take that red shirt and they go transfer and go somewhere else that they can play. Obviously, Arch Manning is the exception to that, sitting behind Quinn Ewers for 2 years. Anytime Lewis gets brought up, because he just turned 18. He's supposed to be a senior in high school right now. Anytime he gets brought up, it's more of when Deion's talking about him, it's more of like a, hey, like he knows what we want from him, or he knows what we want from him. We know what he wants from us. And it seems like they kind of have this shared thought process that he's going to have the keys fully next year, but he's just got to sit back this year. He's got to learn. He's got to learn this offense under Pat Shurmur. So I think that he's talented, but I do think that it would benefit for him to sit for a year, especially given his age, and just kind of learn college football and learn this offense. He got those 2 drives against Delaware. I don't really look too much into those. He had bad play calling. He threw 2 bubble screens and a half-field read on a rollout, which was a good ball on the sideline. He didn't have good pass protection, and it was just really hard to get a gauge when you bring a guy in cold off the bench in the second quarter. He gets 2 drives, and then you just throw him right back on the bench, and then you bring him in to take a couple kneel downs. Like, that was very confusing to me, and it didn't really allow me to see, like, hey, what do we have here with this guy? But it seems like they all have a mutual agreement that he's going to be a backup this season, and then the keys are his next year.
Denver sports writer Trent Finnegan's my guest here on Cougar Tracks on KSL Sports. BYU in Colorado, 8:15 kick on KSL News Radio. We'll get the extended pregame coverage beginning at 6 from Boulder. I'm curious, Trent, the rush offense, Caden Salter's the leading rusher on this team. There were some running backs that got a little bit dinged up, Simeon Price, DeKalen Taylor. What should we make of the running back situation heading into this matchup against BYU?
Well, so after the game, Deion said that Price and Taylor were cool. I don't know. He seemed confident that they would play this week. They've both established them as kind of this running back room is shown it's such a good committee. Like, there really isn't a top guy. Maybe Price is starting to break away as more of a number 1 option because he's shown that combination of power and speed, when Taylor just has the speed, and Michael Welch, the sophomore, just has the power aspect. And then you have Dallin Hayden, who got off to a weird start. He suffered a hand injury in the offseason, so that caused him to miss some time. And he just got into the fold this past week. So they have 4 competent running backs, and then they have Salter, of course, who showed last week when you run option schemes and you run design power run schemes for him, he thrives. That's what he did in Liberty when he ran that spread option scheme down there for a handful of years. So this is not last year's Colorado team, when I think the Alamo Bowl final rushing yards was like 180 for BYU and 2 for Colorado. We're not going to see that this year. They've definitely shown that they're more committed to a balanced attack. I mean, they have 124 rushing attempts and 123 passing attempts as a team this season. That's about as 50-50 as you can get. So they have a good committee. If Taylor is healthy, they need to use him more in the passing game on third downs. He's just shown an immense ability to outrun anybody to the sideline and break a couple tackles. But this is a much better rushing attack than it was the first 2 seasons of the Prime era. The only issue so far this year is that they haven't committed to it in certain games. Georgia Tech, they ran the ball to start that game, and they scored a touchdown on the opening series, and then they just threw passes the next 2 and went 3 and out. The Houston game, they got behind early and stopped running the ball. So in the games where they've committed to having a balance between pass and run, it's been a very good outcome for the rush attacks. They need to do that and establish it early. It's not going to be easy against BYU. They have a really good defensive line in my eyes, but the Buffs have the ability to establish a run, and that will be their key to putting up points on offense on Saturday.
Who are the top wide receivers this year for Colorado?
I don't. It's funny like on paper it's Omarion Miller and Draylon Miller and Joseph Williams, but it's been this weird kind of committee, and they're rotating a bunch of guys in. I mean, we'll see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 players all have at least, 11 players have at least 4 receptions. They're rotating these receivers like crazy. Sincere Brown has really burst onto the scene, but he's only really getting targets on the deep balls. He had the big plays from Ryan Staub in that Delaware game, and then he hit 22.3 miles per hour on his 68-yard touchdown against Wyoming last week. So I would say Omarion Miller's the top guy. They can use him all over the field. Sincere Brown's their deep threat. Joseph Williams and Draylon Miller are kind of guys who they've thrown more intermediate passes to. They had a deep shot to Williams last week, which is another thing. They finally started throwing the ball deep instead of running bubble screens. And then if they're looking for the bubble screens, kind of Isaiah Harge and Quentin Gibson are 2 much smaller, much shiftier guys. So nobody's really established themselves as the top dog in this room just yet, because it's a very deep room, and the coaches have emphasized that over and over. I think that the most talented player is Omarion Miller, and he and Sincere Brown over the top are the 2 players that BYU are going to have circled and filmed this week.
Trent, I'm not going to lie. When I see the defensive numbers for Colorado this season, I see the rush defense at 121st nationally, and I think BYU still got that Alamo Bowl offensive MVP back in LJ Martin. I would say he's been better this season. He's had 3 consecutive weeks with 100-plus rushing yards. Is there context to that rush defense, or has it been as bad as the numbers would suggest so far?
So the Wyoming game, they were pretty solid, and then they let up like a 70-yard burst or something on one play. So that skewed the Wyoming game a little bit. But Houston and Georgia Tech were as advertised. Georgia Tech, Haynes King ran for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Buffs seemed like they had no idea that Haynes King wanted to run the ball that game, which was kind of confusing to most people. And then in the Houston game, Connor Weigman, the Texas A&M transfer, he ran for over 70 yards, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
So they've really struggled with the quarterback run. But something else which LJ Martin is going to feast on, and I agree with you that LJ Martin has been better this year, arguably, than he was last year. The tackling for CU has been a major issue, especially in the secondary. What's been happening is the D-line has been struggling with some injuries so far, so they haven't been getting great push inside. The linebackers have been a little undisciplined. You know, they're trying to replace their 2 stars in Nikai Hill-Green and Levonta Bentley from last year, so they're trying out Jeremiah Brown, Reggie Hughes, Martavius French. And those guys haven't been great at tackling. And there was a touchdown from Connor Weigman where he broke Reggie Hughes' ankles. And then the secondary hasn't been tackling, and the secondary hasn't been getting off of blocks against these better opponents. So I'm expecting LJ Martin to go for 150 on Saturday night. I love his game. He torched CU in the Alamo Bowl. He's torched the 3 teams that BYU have played so far. And if the Buffs can hold him to under 100 yards, that will bode very well for them in the outcome of the game. I just don't see a reality where they do that. Their run defense has not been that strong this season, and their tackling has not been that strong this season. And I think LJ Martin's going to expose that.
Last couple things for you, Trent. Again, Trent Finnegan here from denversports.com. I'm curious, year 3 with Coach Prime, has it been different at all with no Shedeur and no Travis Hunter? I mean, from the outside, I think it's been cool to see that Coach Prime is still there. I've always enjoyed following from afar Coach Prime and what he's doing in Colorado. What's been the biggest difference in his approach to way he's running this program without his sons there, and obviously Travis, who was almost like a son too?
I honestly don't really think there's been a big change in the approach. Maybe the lights aren't as bright because they don't have 2 of the most talented players in college football on the roster this year. But he seemed to handle himself kind of the same. He's emphasized time and time again that this team is better than last year's 9-4 Alamo Bowl team, even though they don't have Shedeur and Travis. I think his argument has been that team was more top heavy, when this team might not have the 2 big stars, but they're more balanced all around, which I would agree with. But I don't think he's truly changed his style of coaching without his sons and Travis around. I was just watching, he was on New Heights with the Kelseys the other day, and they asked him the same thing. And he's like, it's definitely different, but nothing's changed. He still does that pregame walk. The pregame walk he would do with Shedeur all the time. He did it with Isaiah Harge ahead of that Georgia Tech game. So he's still kind of keeping a couple of those traditions around. And another thing too, is he's like, I don't have to be dad anymore. He's like, I don't have to be a dad to those 3. He's like, I can just be a coach. He's like, I try to be a coach, but when you're a father, you're always going to look at those guys a little differently. So I think he's almost treating it the same, and it's maybe even helped him a little more that now he can just be coach, and he doesn't have to worry about the father aspect of it. This program dearly misses those guys. I'll tell you that. They could really kill to have Travis Hunter out there in the secondary again, and maybe Shedeur slinging the rock around. But for Deion's perspective, I really don't think that their absence has changed much, and he's kind of been the same Deion that we've seen the last 2 seasons.
He's Trent Finnegan. Find his fine work, his bylines at denversports.com. You can follow him on X, Trent_Finnegan too. Trent, really appreciate the time. Looking forward to being there in Folsom again. BYU's first time since '81. Cougars are going to Boulder, so cannot wait. It should be a great game Saturday night in Boulder.
Agree with you. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mitch. I appreciate it.
Big thanks to Trent for hopping on and giving us a breakdown of the Buffaloes. And that will do it for today's Wednesday edition of Cougar Tracks. We will be back tomorrow with more BYU and Colorado breakdown, an interview with Coach Sione Buha, as Justin Kirkland is getting set to return at the defensive tackle position. We'll hit on that and more here on Cougar Tracks. So talk to you tomorrow here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSLSports.com.